Donald Trump is getting torched at the Munich Conference that's currently taking place overseas. Democrats like AOC and Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom are just ripping into Donald Trump, and they are presenting to the world a different paradigm of leadership in the United States. Effectively, you have AOC and Newsom serving as shadow presidents as they push back against the Trump regime and the authoritarianism taking place in the United States that has the rest of the world terrified and frightened by what's going on here in the U.S., as it has us frightened here, what's happening in the United States. Let's take a look at what AOC had to say at the Munich conference as she talks about how the U.S. is withdrawing from the world stage under the Trump regime. And you see this type of authoritarianism that is rising, the type of alliances with Putin. Here, let's play this clip.
Well, first and foremost, I think we need to revisit our commitments to international aid. Not just USAID, but the dozens of global compacts that this current Secretary of State and President Trump have withdrawn from. They are looking to withdraw the United States from the entire world so that we can turn into an age of authoritarians that can carve out the world where Donald Trump can command the Western Hemisphere and Latin America as his personal sandbox, where Putin can saber rattle around Europe and try to bully around our own allies there, and for essentially authoritarians to have their own geographic domains. And it actually is the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It is our global alliances that can be a hard stop against authoritarian consolidation of power, particularly in the installation of regional puppet governments.
More from AOC right here.
Yes, that's absolutely right. I think one of the connections and relationships that is under discussed, particularly in the security space, is the fact that I believe we're seeing an economy across economy around the world, including in the United States, that extreme levels of income inequality lead to social instability and drives, in a sense, in authoritarianism, right-wing populism, and very dangerous domestic internal politics. And that is a direct outcome of not just income inequality, but the failure of democracies over decades to deliver. The failure to deliver higher wages, the failure to rein in corporations. The point was just made about antitrust. In the United States, antitrust is such a foundational bedrock value, not just because the ascent of monopolies create the abuse of power in corporations and market power, but there is a level of market concentration and corporate consolidation where a massive company can get so big that its consolidated power can rival that of nation states. In democracies, we have elected leaders, and in massive corporations that then begin to consume the public sector, gobble up these spending, they start to call the shots. And we're starting to see this with some of the billionaire class throwing their weight around in domestic politics and in global politics as well. So it is of utmost urgent priority that we get our economic houses in order and deliver material gains for the working class, or else we will fall to a more isolated world governed by authoritarians that also do not deliver to working people.
Now let me share with you what California Governor Gavin Newsom was saying at the Munich conference, how this is a moral moment for our democracy, and we just have to stop this BS. It's a great point, framing this as a moral issue beyond politics. It's about basic morality, folks. Play this clip.
Made some pretty aggressive comments in Davos. I think I handed out knee pads on stage for corporate leaders, sold out universities, law firms in my country that are selling out. You just got to call this stuff out. Look, the polluted heart of the climate crisis is big oil, period, full stop. That's what this is all about. I mean, that's where the politics, that's where the timidity comes from. You talk about the tech stack. You can't get in one of these modern new vehicles and ever want to go back to the old gas guzzler. I mean, the technology, and we can talk in terms of just energy efficiency and how we bring down costs, and we've got to address those cost issues. But the biggest problem is the deceit and the denial that's happening because of these special interests. And so you just have to have the courage to call it out. And I agree with you. It's infuriating what I hear privately, but is not expressed publicly. And so we have to call people out. They'll be held to account. They will be judged and ultimately judge themselves. And I think this is a moral moment across the board, simultaneous crisis, not just climate, but democracy, all this stacking of stress. And we all have a relationship to it. Society becomes how we behave. We are our behaviors. And so all of us have a role to play. All of us have agency. We can shape this conversation, but we have to stand up with more clarity, conviction, and we have to be more consistent.
People don't speak up because they're afraid of retaliation.
Yeah. Well, buck up. So am I. There's probably not a politician in the United States. I'm under assault attack by this guy every single day. Here's the president of the United States. He's 80 years old, and he's calling me a nickname that an 8-year-old called me, new scum. The president of the United States. You saw the racist tropes he put out. This is the president of the United States of America. Call this guy out. Stop this timidity.
Governor Newsom then opines on what the Trump regime did yesterday in eliminating the finding that climate change, that greenhouse gases cause harm to people's health and cause harm, that endangerment finding. Watch what Newsom says. Play this clip.
When I was in Belém, we signed 22 MOUs with 22 states in Brazil. And the MOUs are not pieces of paper. They're commitments from the state of California to provide technical assistance and to provide resources and a resourceful mindset, meaning an openness to engage in problem solving. Let me give you a specific example. The modern environmental movement in the United States, again, started in California under Ronald Reagan. Not because Ronald Reagan was a fierce champion of clean air and clean water until he had to be. Los Angeles was so smoggy that businesses were complaining to the governor saying, we can't do business here. So he decided to do something about it with tailpipe. That's exactly why Donald Trump just said, pollute the hell out of the United States. That's called deficit spending. Pollution is an act of theft in the health of a nation and the cleanup costs. You saw this just in the United States of America alone, 23 weather-related events last year that cost the taxpayers over $1 billion. We are, again, as dumb as we want to be. Don't tell me this is about saving money. Quite the contrary. But it was interesting, and this is the point. The folks in China paid some attention. We established relationships with China. They send technical teams, and literally some of their low carbon green growth specific to their cap and trade programs came from the example of California and the work we did. And Beijing is proof positive of a lot of that technical assistance and support. So that's at scale, the kind of work we do in terms of this relationship, nationally, subnationally, people to actually solve problems despite, again, who's in office in a particular jurisdiction.
AOC is next asked about when she runs for president. This was the question. Are you going to impose a wealth tax? Let's play it.
So when you run for president, are you going to impose a wealth tax or a billionaire's tax?
I don't think that, I don't think that anyone, and that we don't have to wait for any one president to impose a wealth tax. I think that it needs to be done expeditiously.
And interestingly, when I wrote about wealth tax recently, and of course the big argument against this is always capital flight, the US is actually uniquely placed to do it because you guys tax on the basis of citizenship, so people can't flee, And even if you change your citizenship, there's basically an exit tax because you have to pay a tax on unrealized capital gains. I learned this just recently.
More from AOC right here. Let's play it.
What we are seeing over the last 8 years, I think, has been a growing recognition that of those past errors that go back, that include military interventionism in the Iraq War, that include a recognition of NAFTA as a failed policy for many rural and working class communities. And now I think we are moving in this direction of increased recognition that we have to have a working class centered politics if we are going to succeed, and also if we are going to stave off the scourges of authoritarianism, which also provides political siren calls to allure people into finding scapegoats to blame for rising economic inequality, both domestically and globally.
And finally, here's what AOC had to say. Let's play it.
I think one of the reasons why not just myself, but many of our colleagues here, in fact, many Democrats that are here as well, is because we want to tell a larger story, that what is happening is indeed very grave. And we are in a new era, domestically and globally. There have been many leaders who've said we will go back. And I think we have to recognize that we are in a new day and in a new time. But that does not mean that the majority of Americans are ready to walk away from a rules-based order, and that we're ready to walk away from our commitment to democracy. I think what we identify is that in a rules-based order, hypocrisy is vulnerability. And so I think what we are seeking is a return to a rules-based order that eliminates the hypocrisies around when too often in the West we look the other way for inconvenient populations, to act out these paradoxes, whether it is, kidnapping a foreign head of state, whether it is threatening our allies to colonize Greenland, whether it is looking the other way in a genocide. Hypocrisies are vulnerabilities, and they threaten democracies globally. And so I think many of us are here to say we are here and we are ready for the next chapter, not to have the world turn to isolation, but to deepen our partnership on greater and increased commitment to integrity to our values.
There you have it, folks. Let me know what you think. Let's hit subscribe and let's get to 6 million subscribers, but very powerful there by AOC and Gavin Newsom.
The truth is more important than ever. Check out our new Truth Over Lies collection at store.MeidasTouch.com. All 100% USA union made.